Yo, what's good, Commanders fam? If you thought the offseason was about to be boring, let me tell you straight up, you're completely off. We're talking Jaden Daniels out here playing GM and recruiting talent like LeBron putting together a super team. Strategic moves in the backfield that could give this offense the extra dimension it was missing all last season. And a mock draft that has the defense looking absolutely different from the unit we watched get cooked in the 2025 to 2026 season. Yo, really don't get it. This isn't just that usual all-season talk you hear every February where nothing actually happens after the hype dies down. This is real contender building. This is Adam Peters moving with intention. This is an organization that finally understands the urgency of the moment. There's a real competitive window open right now with Jaden Daniels on a rookie contract. And every move that gets made over these next few months is going to determine whether this window gets maximized or wasted like so many franchises have done before. So get comfortable, throw on your headphones, and lock in. Because we are about to break down every detail, every tactical implication, every financial angle, every reason why you should be just as hyped as I am right now. We are going to talk offensive chemistry, run game philosophy, draft strategy, and how all these pieces fit into the bigger puzzle of building a championship contender in Washington, D.C. Let's get into it, fam. When this news hit, the phone almost flew out of my hand. Jaden Daniels, the franchise quarterback, the one who just took this team places it had not been in decades, casually dropped in an interview with Nate Tice from Yahoo Sports that there is interest in linking back up with a former Arizona State teammate. And listen, when a star quarterback starts dropping names like that in a public interview, that is not a coincidence. That is not casual conversation. That is intentional messaging. We are talking Brandon Aiyuk, and if you know even a little bit of college football history, you already know exactly why this makes all the sense in the world. First, let's hit the historical context and why this connection is so special. When Jaden was a freshman at Arizona State back in 2019, there was a season with close to 3,000 passing yards and 17 touchdowns in a year where nobody had real expectations for the Sun Devils. And who was the favorite? Target, the security blanket, the one getting looked at on those critical third downs. Brandon Aiyuk, who racked up close to 1,200 yards and 8 touchdowns that season. That chemistry is not something you just invent on the fly, fam. That connection is already battle-tested on the field, under pressure, on third and long, in the red zone, in moments that actually matter. Daniels knows exactly how Aiyuk runs routes, knows his tendencies, understands when he's going to break off a comeback versus when he's going to stack and go vertical. Aiyuk knows exactly how Jaden reads defenses, when Jaden is about to extend the play with legs, and where to work to when the scramble drill kicks in. That is invaluable when the goal is building an explosive offense in the NFL. People really underrate how important that pre-existing chemistry is. It is not just, oh, they play together. It is, these two already won games together and can read each other without saying a word. Now, let's talk about the actual need in Washington. Because this is not just some college nostalgia tour. Terry McLaurin is still the number one receiver. That is not even a debate. Terry is a complete professional, a leader in that locker room, and when fully healthy, one of the cleanest route runners in the entire NFL. But after a completely ridiculous 2024 to 2025 season where Terry put up straight all-pro numbers, there was a clear drop in 2025 to 2026. And that was not all on Terry. Part of it was injuries. Terry was dealing with a hamstring that never really fully healed, and it clearly zapped some explosiveness. Another part was Jaden being banged up during some key stretches, which messed up timing across the whole passing offense. But even when both of them were healthy and on the field together, Terry kept seeing doubles, brackets, safeties shaded over the top. Because being completely honest, there was no other real threat forcing defenses to respect the other side of the field. Deebo Samuel was a bright spot once he got here, no cap. there was versatility, toughness, playmaking. But Debo hits free agency this offseason as an unrestricted free agent, and that age just turned 30. That is not exactly a fresh set of legs, and after years of heavy usage in San Francisco, and then in Washington, the body has taken a pretty serious beating. How many more seasons of true elite level player left? Probably not many. So how do you fix that? How do you build a receiving corps that does not live and die on one player staying healthy? You go get somebody like Brandon Aiyuk. Aiyuk already has 2 seasons with over 1,000 yards in the NFL. In 2023, there were 1,342 yards and 7 touchdowns. In 2024, before the injuries started stacking up, it was still another strong season. This is a player who knows how to produce at a high level when the system fits and the quarterback trusts him. But the situation in San Francisco has been, let's call it complicated. Public contract drama, reports of tension with the coaching staff, injuries that felt like they never quite healed right. And honestly, it just does not look like the relationship between the 49ers and Aiyuk is in a good place after everything that went down. When the organization does not really value a player, when there are constant reports about being shopped in trades, when the environment feels toxic, it is time to move on. And for Aiyuk, Washington might be exactly the fresh start that is needed. This is where Washington becomes the perfect landing spot. A franchise clearly on the rise after an unexpected playoff run. A young, dynamic quarterback who already has chemistry with you from college, an offensive coordinator in Cliff Kingsbury who actually knows how to use versatile receivers, and a real shot at being a centerpiece in an offense that is right on the edge of blowing up. How do you say no to that? How do you not get amped up at the idea of being reunited with a former college quarterback in a scheme that fits your strengths as part of something special getting built? Picture this for a second, fam, and really see it play out on the field. Terry McLaurin lined up on one side as the X receiver, running those deep crossers and comebacks that are already automatic. Brandon Aiyuk on the other side as the Z, using that versatility to attack from outside or bumping inside to the slot in certain packages. What does a defense even do with that? They have to pick their poison. If the call is the double, Terry with safety helps shade it over the top. Aiyuk is sitting one-on-one with a corner and Jaden gets an easy read. If they lean their best corner on Aiyuk without help and show that kind of respect, Terry comes alive on the opposite side. And if the approach is single high safety to keep more bodies in the box to deal with the run game, Jaden Daniels punishes that with mobility, play, action deep shots, and the ability to extend plays and find receivers downfield when the protection breaks down. That level of offensive versatility, the ability to attack in multiple ways, is exactly what is needed to push this unit from just good to legit elite. Because being honest, in the 2025 to 2026 season when Jaden was healthy, the offense was good, but it was not elite. It was not unstoppable. There were too many 3-and-outs, too many spots where Jaden was forcing throws because nobody was winning routes, too many games where the offense just disappeared for entire quarters. And listen, this is not some desperate fan base fantasy, cooking up off-season storylines out of boredom. Jaden actually said this in a public interview with a legit national outlet. When the franchise quarterback, the future of the organization, the player the entire structure is built around starts dropping names of the players that should be in the huddle, ownership and the GM better be locked in on that. Adam Peters already showed in the first year as GM that there is real communication with players, that the roster gets built with logic and not just ego, and that big aggressive swings are on the table when the window is there. The Martian Lattimore trade, even though it did not pan out the way everyone hoped because of injuries, still proved that Peters is willing to go all in when the opportunity lines up. The move for Laramie Tunsil to lock down Jaden's blind side showed that the priorities are understood. If Jaden is nudging for a reunion with Aiyuk, there is every reason to believe Peters is at least going to dig into that seriously. From a pure tactical and scheme fit angle, Aiyuk slots in perfectly with what Cliff Kingsbury wants on offense. Cliff loves receivers who can line up in multiple spots, who understand concepts instead of just individual routes, who can win against man and also find soft spots against zone. Aiyuk checks every one of those boxes. This is a true multi-positional receiver who can play outside as a traditional X or Z, slide into the slot in 11 personnel, motion across the formation to create mismatches, and run the full route tree. The work in the intermediate game, those in breaking routes at 12 to 15 yards that are the bread and butter of so many modern offenses, is elite. The release off the line against press is clean and technically sound. The hands are reliable on third down when it is non-negotiable that the catch gets made. And the ability to win contested catches gives Jaden an escape hatch when the protection falls apart and there is nothing left but to trust the receiver to go make a play. With how many times Jaden had to bail out broken pockets last year because the protection was not holding up, having a receiver who can adjust routes mid-play, find open zone space when the play extends, and go win those 50-50 balls is absolutely crucial. That is the difference between just a good offense and a great one. Then factor in the psychological and cultural impact. Bringing in Aiyuk is not just upgrading the depth chart. It is a loud message to Jaden Daniels saying, this organization is all in. The pieces to win are coming. The input is being heard. This roster is being built around your strengths. That builds trust between quarterback and front office. That builds a winning culture. That pulls in other free agents who can see that Washington is serious about competing. That, more than anything, is the organizational mindset that has to be in place if this is going to be a real jump from playoff team to championship threat. The franchise quarterback cannot be out there feeling like the weapons are not on par with the rest of the league. There cannot be a world where Jaden looks around seeing other young quarterbacks with stacked receiver rooms while being asked to pull magic out of limited options. That breeds resentment, doubt, and later on, problems in the building. Obviously, there are real obstacles in making this happen. Aiyuk is not cheap. There is a serious contract in place from San Francisco, and any deal with the Niners is going to require real draft capital and possibly some cap gymnastics. They are not just going to hand Aiyuk over for free, especially not to another NFC team that could become a legit threat. But if there is anyone built to navigate those trade and cap complexities, it is Adam Peters. Coming from that same San Francisco front office, there's a direct understanding of how they operate, what kind of compensation structure they would look for, and how to negotiate from that. Peters has already shown an ability to pull off smart trades that improve the roster without completely mortgaging the future. There is a clear understanding of the salary cap and how to structure deals to keep flexibility. Would it be cheap? No. Would it be worth it? Absolutely. Look at the timeline. This is year 2 of Jaden Daniels. That rookie contract window is about 3 seasons of elite quarterback play at a discount price, which allows heavy investment everywhere else. That is the window that has to be maxed out. Those are the years where all-in moves make the most sense because the cap flexibility actually exists. And yeah, there are fair concerns. What if Aiyuk does not get fully back to that 1,000-yard form? What if the injuries linger? What if that Arizona State chemistry does not translate in the NFL version of this offense? All valid questions. But even Aiyuk at 80% of peak is still a massive upgrade from what was lining up opposite Terry last season. And with that pre-built chemistry with Jaden, with the fact that they have already played together and share that understanding, the odds of Aiyuk getting back to his best level in Washington are a lot higher than if the destination was a random team with a quarterback seeing him for the first time. Good quarterbacks elevate receivers, and Jaden already proved in the rookie season that there is an ability to lift the play of those around. Now imagine that with a receiver of Aiyuk's caliber. There is another angle not being talked about enough. If Deebo Samuel really walks in free agency, which looks more and more likely given the age and expected price tag, Washington has to replace that production. Deebo gave versatility. Could line up at receiver, take handoffs like a running back, run jet sweeps, and block in the run game. Aiyuk does not fully replicate that exact profile, but still adds in other ways. Aiyuk can be the perfect complement to Terry in ways Deebo never quite was. Because Terry and Deebo have more overlap in skill set than there would be with Terry and Aiyuk. Aiyuk can stretch the field vertically in ways that force safeties to really respect the deep ball. The tight ends get easier matchups because defenses can no longer just bracket Terry and live with everyone else. The run game becomes more effective because defenses cannot just stack the box when there are two. Real WR number one type threats lined up outside. And finally, think about the signal this sends to the rest of the league and to future free agents. Washington is trying to win right now. This is not some slow burn rebuild where the plan is to hoard picks and just hope young guys develop. There is no settling for just making the playoffs. There is an obvious push to add win now pieces, make aggressive moves, and show that the goal is championships. That draws in free agents who want to win. That changes the national perception around this franchise. That shifts the trajectory from where things were just 2 years ago when this team was the punchline of the league. Those days when nobody wanted to sign here and there was a constant need to overpay just to land average players. That era is done if this front office keeps stacking smart, aggressive moves like this. So yeah, fam, Jaden Daniels recruiting Brandon Aiyuk is not just some cool offseason thought experiment. It is not just nostalgic fans dreaming up reunions. It is a move that makes sense from every angle. Proven chemistry, clear roster need, perfect timing with the competitive window, obvious tactical fit with Cliff's scheme, right organizational mentality. If this happens, if Adam Peters actually pulls this off, the Commanders' offense becomes straight up scary. Terry and Aiyuk outside. Zach Ertz or whoever ends up as tight end number one working the middle, Austin Eckler, or a new running back one. Creating mismatches out of the backfield, and Jaden Daniels orchestrating all of it with arm and legs. Defenses are not going to have answers. And personally, I am absolutely here for that. All right, breathe. Get some water. Because what is? Next is also absolutely wild and needs a deep dive. All right, fam, let's talk backfield. Because even though the receiver room is screaming for upgrades, the run game also needs real attention, and that cannot be ignored. And according to multiple reports from insiders and beat writers, Washington is actively working through different options in both free agency and the trade market to finally lock that spot down. The loudest names right now are Breece Hall, Travis Etienne Jr., Kenneth Walker III, and Rico Dowdle. Each of them brings something totally different, so let's break them down one by one for real. Starting with Breece Hall, because if Washington is serious about a big-time backfield upgrade, Hall makes a ton of sense from almost every angle. When healthy, and that is the key phrase here, Hall has shown over and over again that there is an ability to handle a heavy workload of 20-plus carries and still generate game-changing explosive plays. Runs hard between the tackles, has excellent vision to find cutback lanes when the first crease closes, and does not need a ton of space to be effective. Because that blend of balance and power lets tackles get broken even when defenses are in solid position. That is exactly what is needed when an offensive line is still developing and not exactly opening freeway-sized holes consistently. The Tunsil addition helped, but this is not suddenly the 2016 Dallas Cowboys front. Hall also has huge value in the passing game, which gives Washington more flexibility in how offensive packages are built. There is real route running out of the backfield like an actual receiver. Legit pass protection when the call is to keep Jaden clean on obvious passing downs. And the ability to stay on the field on 3rd and long without tipping that a throw is coming because defenses have to respect the receiving threat. Bringing Hall in will be less about some running back by committee Vibe and more about establishing a clear number one who can handle over 250 touches in a season. Having a back who can do everything run inside, outside, catch, and block is an absolute game changer in a modern NFL that loves versatility. From a tactical standpoint, Hall fits what Cliff Kingsbury historically wants to do in the run game. Cliff leans on zone concepts inside zone, outside zone, where the back has to have elite vision, the patience to let blocks develop, and the juice to explode once a lane opens. Hall checks those boxes. Cliff also likes getting running backs involved in the screen game, whether as traditional screens or slips into the flat. Hall is excellent there. The hands are good. There is an understanding of how to set up blocks, and the speed is there to turn a 5-yard design into something 20+ when the blocking is on point. The ability to catch from the backfield also opens up play action in a big way, which is crucial when the quarterback is a true dual threat like Jaden Daniels. Defenses have to respect the run, which forces safeties to roll down, which opens space for Terry and potentially Aiyuk to work vertically. It is all connected, fam. The run game sets up the pass. The pass softens the run. That relationship is straight up symbiotic. But there is a big elephant in the room with Breece Hall, availability and cost. Hall has already dealt with a significant injury history, including a brutal ACL tear that erased most of the second year. Once back, the talent was still obvious, but the injury concerns are real. Can the body hold for a full 17-game slate? Can that frame truly handle the kind of volume Washington would need from a running back one? Then there is the asking price. The Jets will not just be handing Hall over. It will probably cost at least a second-round pick, maybe more depending on how many teams jump into the bidding. Is that price worth it for a running back when the league has historically shown that the position does not age well? That is a very real question Adam Peters has to answer. Then there is Travis Etienne, Jr. Etienne would give Washington a totally different style in the backfield. More finesse than power, more speed than brute force. Etienne is at the best when there is space, when that elite acceleration can hit the edge, when quick passes can be turned into chunk plays using elusiveness in the open field. That would finally add an element that has been missing from this offense, a true home run hitter who can take any touch the distance. There were way too many snaps last season where defenses knew there was no real threat to house something from the backfield, and they played like it. Etienne is not the bruiser who is going to consistently churn out 4 yards between the tackles in short yardage. But that does not have to be the job if used correctly. The value is in that first step quickness, the vision to find creases, and the way defenses get stressed horizontally when he hits the edge and forces linebackers to make plays in space. In the right scheme, he opens things up for everyone else instead of just eating carries. But let's keep it real. It is hard as hell to see Etienne walking away from Jacksonville and Trevor Lawrence. The Clemson connection is real, they were college teammates. They won a national title together. There are years of chemistry already banked. Unless Jacksonville decides to move on for cap reasons or Washington throws down a massive offer they just cannot match, the odds say Etienne stays put. And from Jacksonville's viewpoint, why move him? Productive, still relatively young, fits the offense, not a headache off the field, not out here demanding a trade on social media. The only way that door opens is if Jacksonville flips into full rebuild mode, and nothing really suggests that right now. Kenneth Walker III is more like a long-shot lottery ticket, and that needs to be set up front. Seattle just won the Super Bowl. Walker just walked away as Super Bowl MVP. Players in that spot almost never get moved unless the offer is so over the top that the team has no choice but to take it. To pry Walker away from a championship caliber Seattle roster, a roster that just proved it can win everything, the price probably starts at multiple first-round picks. Between the insane cost and Seattle having every reason to keep that core together, this just does not feel realistic at all. But just imagine for a second if it somehow happened. A Super Bowl MVP running back in prime years running behind Tunsil. And an improving offensive line with Jaden Daniels holding backside defenders honest with legs. That offense would be absolutely insane. But yeah, that is fantasy mode, not something to really bank on. Then there is Rico Dowdle. Dowdle might actually be the most practical and realistic option in this whole group, and that is not an insult. Sometimes the best move is not the flashiest move. Sometimes what is really needed is the steady, reliable contributor who just does the job. Dowdle runs with purpose and decisiveness. There is no dancing trying to make everyone miss. There is no constant hunt for home runs on every single carry. Sees a crease, hits it, falls forward, takes what is there. Protects the ball. No big fumble problems that cost games. Understands pass protection. And when given real workload, there is proof that 15 to 18 carries can be handled without turning into a liability. For Washington, Dowdle will be more of a reliable piece than a true centerpiece. The floor goes up for the entire position group. You know what the baseline looks like. Around 4 yards a pop, no bat-breaking turnovers, solid on all 3 downs. That kind of back gives flexibility because he can be the steady side of a committee if a complementary style gets added, and the cost is probably very manageable. Maybe a 3rd or 4th round pick, maybe just a free agency pickup without giving away draft picks at all. Sometimes what is really needed is not the Pro Bowl name, but the steady pro who does the job, does not blow up the cap, and lets the front office spend big elsewhere. So what should Washington do? What is the right move? Honestly, fam, it depends on how the rest of the offseason shakes out and what other opportunities present themselves. If Breece Hall can be had without sacrificing way too much draft capital, something like a 2nd and a 4th, and if the medicals look good, that is probably option number 1. Hall gives the highest ceiling. But if the price is too steep, if the Jets start talking a 1st rounder or multiple 2nds, then Dowdle starts to look like a very solid alternative that does not wreck the budget, does not eat premium draft picks, and still clearly upgrades the roster from where it was. A 10 would be fun, but looks unlikely for all the reasons already laid out. Walker is basically a Madden trade, not a real-life expectation. What is absolutely clear, though, is that the backfield still feels incomplete. There is an obvious opening for another piece, and it is hard to picture this team going into the 2026 season without addressing it one way or another. The need might not be as desperate as receiver or some defensive spots, but it is still very real. Good teams do not ignore that. Whether it is free agency with someone like Dowdle, the draft with a back in the middle rounds, or a trade for a name like Hall or Etienne, Washington has to get this position solidified. And with Jaden Daniels heading into a full offseason of training and prep fully healthy, giving that quarterback a reliable run game is only going to make the whole operation exponentially more dangerous. Think about it like this. Defenses already have to respect Jaden's ability to run. There is already a need for a spy or at least discipline contained on the edges. If now there is also a legitimate running back one who can go for 100 plus yards on any given Sunday, suddenly defenses cannot just pin ears back and rush. Suddenly, 2 high safety shells daring Washington to run are not so comfortable. Suddenly, this offense has real balance, multiple dimensions, and answers for whatever look a defense wants to show. That is when an offense becomes truly dangerous. When defenses do not know what is coming. When every part of the attack has to be respected. When taking away one thing is not enough. That is the jump from good to great. That is the jump from playoff team to championship contender. All right, last news item, but definitely not the least important. In fact, this might be the biggest one long term.
If the expectation was only offensive talk in this whole breakdown, that is already out the window. Because while the offense has some obvious holes, the defense needs a ton more work. And this Cody Williams 3-round mock draft over at Fansided has Washington attacking the biggest weakness on the board: the desperate need for young, aggressive, talented defensive playmakers who can grow with Jaden Daniels and form the core of this team for years. Williams has the Commanders taking Caleb Downs from Ohio State with the 7th pick, then grabbing Donnie Dennis Sutton from Penn State in the 3rd round at pick 71. When these picks get studied for real, and there is a clear understanding of what each player brings and how they fit with what Ronnie Jones wants to run on defense, both of them make a lot of sense, starting with Caleb Downs, because this might be the single most important pick Washington can make in this draft. There are legit NFL scouts, not internet draft guys. Actual team scouts calling Downs the best all-around prospect in the entire 2026 class. Not best safety, best prospect, full stop. That is the level of talent in play. Downs falls to 7 in this mock because safety is a devalued position in the draft compared to edges, offensive tackles, and true shutdown corners. That is just the reality of how the league drafts. Certain positions go earlier no matter what the individual talent is, because of how teams value them. The last time a safety went in the top 10 was way back in 2017 when the New York Jets took Jamal Adams at 6th overall. In the last 5 years, only the true safeties have gone in the 1st round. Kyle Hamilton in 2022 and Yaquin Brisker also in 2022. That is it. 2 players, 5 drafts. That tells you everything about how the league, as a whole, treats that position on draft night. It is frustrating, because good safety play is absolutely crucial in the modern NFL, but that is the market. But Downs is not just some solid safety prospect. This is different. This is potentially a generational safety talent. The type of player who can legitimately change what is possible from that spot, from a tactical and versatility angle. Downs can literally make plays all over the field in ways most safeties simply cannot. He can play deep safety and single high looks, being the last line of defense with elite range from sideline to sideline and the ability to make open field tackles on running backs who slip through the front. He can roll down into the box and function like an extra linebacker, taking on blocks, fitting gaps, and making stops in traffic. He can lock up tight ends and man coverage, dealing with the size and physicality while still having the speed to run with them downfield. On top of that, the instincts to read quarterbacks, anticipate throws, and create turnovers are elite. At Ohio State, there were games where it looked like Downs knew the call before the snap. That kind of football IQ cannot be coached. It is either there or it is not. And Downs very clearly has it. When there is a safety who can do all of that, it totally changes the scheme and what a defensive coordinator can even call. Ronnie Jones, coming in from Seattle, where there was time with players like Jamal Adams in his prime, is probably drooling thinking about a player like Downs. Jones can disguise coverages before the snap because Downs can line up in multiple spots and still execute. He can trust more aggressive man coverage behind blitzes because Downs can handle heavy responsibility. He can dial up creative pressures with Downs blitzing from depth. He can run different coverages on either side of the field while still relying on Downs' range. As a safety net, the possibilities are almost endless when a player has that level of talent and flexibility. So, the question for Adam Peters is this: is Downs simply the best safety in the 2026 class? Or is Downs that new breed of safety who can completely transform a defense? If it is just the former, just a very good safety prospect, maybe a top 10 slot is a little rich when there are edge rushers and corners still on the board. But if it is the latter, if he really is that evolutionary piece who raises every level and becomes the true quarterback of the defense, then this is the perfect way for Peters to start a total defensive overhaul based on the Ohio State tape, based on what scouts are saying, based on how Downs showed up in big games against legit competition. It really feels like that second scenario is the truth. This player looks special. Some will ask, what about David Bailey? In Williams' mock, Bailey and edge with real talent was still on the board when Downs got picked. Edge is a massive need in Washington, no question. But if Downs truly is that guy and sits at the top of the board when the pick comes up, the move is to take the best player, period. Edge can still be attacked in the 3rd round. Just like Williams does in this mock, it can be handled in free agency with veteran help. It can be handled through trades, but a generational level safety does not fall into your lap every offseason when that opportunity is there. The move is to take it and not overthink it. That leads directly into Donnie Dennis Sutton in the 3rd. There is a 6'5", 265-pound frame. And this is a DMV kid from Owings Mills, Maryland, perfect size to live on the edge in a 4.3 front, which is what Daroni Jones is likely to major in. On top of the frame, there is real production across 55 games at Penn State, a program known for churning out defensive talent, 23.5 total sacks, 34.5 tackles for loss, 7 forced fumbles, all against strong Big Ten competition. Those numbers are real. Consistent production against legit competition over multiple seasons is exactly what teams want to see. What really stands out with Dennis Sutton, beyond just the stat sheet, is the versatility and football IQ. There are even a couple of interceptions on the resume, which for an edge is rare and speaks to awareness and hands that allow for usage in different roles in the NFL. This is not just a one-trick pass rusher. There is ability to set the edge in the run game, drop into coverage on zone blitz concepts, and play different techniques based on situation. With what Daroni Jones is aiming to build a defense that leans on disguise, multiple looks, and versatility, that kind of all-around game is huge. Jones likes walking pass rushers around before the snap to create confusion. He likes showing one structure and rotating into something totally different right after the snap. He likes bringing heat from unexpected angles. Dennis Sutton fits that kind of system, because the football IQ is there to handle complex assignments and the physical tools are there to execute them. Now, let's be honest about the current edge room in Washington, because once the depth chart is laid out, the urgency jumps off the page. Washington is hoping to get Dorrance Armstrong Jr. back at full strength next season after the injury. Armstrong flashed before going down, but has never been a true elite pass rusher. Solid player, not necessarily that 10-plus sack every year monster. Behind Armstrong, the depth gets real thin real fast. Von Miller and Preston Smith, both veterans brought in to spark the pass rush, are not expected to have roles in 2026. That chapter is done. Dietrich Wise Jr.'s future is very cloudy after a disappointing season that did not come close to expectations. Jacob Martin, probably the most consistent edge presence in 2025 to 2026, is an undersized hybrid linebacker type who is also about to hit free agency. No guarantee of a return. Javonte Jean-Baptiste and Drake Jackson bring some upside and flashed at times, but they are still completely unproven as full-time starters. Asking them to anchor the edge would be a huge gamble. When you see the depth chart like that, the need at edge stops being just big and becomes critical. In that context, Dennis Sutton in the third is very solid value. It is not the flashy selection that dominates headlines. It is not that pick that makes fans jump out of their seats on draft night. But this is the exact kind of player who can contribute right away in a rotation, grow into a reliable starter with coaching, and turn into one of those core guys who hangs around this defense for 8 to 10 years. Those are the picks that quietly build winning rosters long term. Not everything has to be a home run swing. Not everything has to be the sexy pick. Sometimes the best decision is the consistent producer who does the job, does not blow assignments, and gradually levels up year after year. Those players become the foundation. Logan Paulson, former Commanders tight end who now covers the team closely, recently named Dennis Sutton as a player to watch in this draft. When a former player who knows the building, understands what it takes to succeed in Washington, and has real relationships with the current staff says something like that, ears should perk up. Paulson knows exactly what Washington needs, knows the type of personalities and play styles that fit the culture, knows what Daroni Jones is probably looking for on defense. If Dennis Sutton is on that radar, there is clearly something there. In terms of fit, motor, character, or football IQ that lines up with what is being built. So what does this all mean if both picks land? It means Washington is serious about fixing the defense at a foundational level. This is not just slapping on veteran band-aids for a season or two. This is a commitment to pouring significant draft capital, a top 10 pick and a top 75 pick into young playmakers who can grow right alongside Jaden Daniels, stick around for their entire rookie deals, and form a defensive core for the next 5 to 7 years. That is exactly the mindset needed when building a true championship contender. There has to be young, ascending talent on both sides of the ball, players who are climbing right as the quarterback is climbing, a core that can contend together over multiple seasons, not just one random year. Obviously, the draft is still more than 2 months out. The combine has not happened yet. Pro days have not happened yet. Private workouts and meetings are still coming. Players are going to rise and fall on boards as teams gather more information. Maybe Downs is not there at 7. Maybe another player jumps to the top of Washington's board. Maybe Dennis Sutton tests so well that he ends up going earlier than the 3rd. But right now, the early projection from Williams tracks perfectly with Washington's desperate need to upgrade defensively. And if this draft ends with Caleb Downs and Donnie Dennis Sutton in burgundy and gold, there will not be many people complaining. That would be a fantastic haul that attacks critical needs with high-quality prospects. Now imagine this defense in 2026 if that scenario plays out. Caleb Downs roaming on the back end, making plays sideline to sideline, lifting everyone around. Donnie Dennis Sutton developing into a consistent edge force next to Dorrance Armstrong, Jonathan Allen, and Darren Payne still dominating inside. Frankie Lovu bringing that tone-setting energy at linebacker, Emmanuel Forbes and possibly a new free agent corner locking down the outside. That unit looks completely different from the one fans had to sit through in 2025. To 2026, there would still be work to do, more pieces to add, but it would be a massive step forward. Younger, faster, more athletic, on the rise. Put that next to an offense led by Jaden Daniels, Terry McLaurin, potentially Brandon Aiyuk, plus a solid run game. And all of a sudden the conversation becomes complete football team. All right, fam. That is the rundown. 3 storylines that legitimately have the power to completely reshape this franchise heading into 2026 and beyond. Jaden Daniels possibly recruiting Brandon Aiyuk to recreate that old Arizona State chemistry. Washington seriously exploring realistic backfield options like Breece Hall and Rico Dowdle. And a mock draft that has the defense looking completely different with Caleb Downs and Donnie Dennis Sutton. This is not just more empty February offseason noise. This is real championship contender construction. This is an organization that finally understands the urgency of the moment, that understands there is a franchise quarterback on a rookie deal, that understands the window is open right now and has to be maximized. And if Adam Peters hits even 2 of these 3, if Aiyuk is landed or the backfield is solidified or the draft gets nailed, the Commanders are going to be a serious problem in 2026. Not just a playoff team, not just a team that might make a little noise. A real contender that other teams have to game plan for, respect, and flat-out fear. Listen, it is easy to get hyped in the offseason. Every team gets better on paper once the headlines start rolling. Every fanbase talks itself into optimism by February. But when there is a franchise quarterback like Jaden Daniels, a sharp and aggressive GM like Adam Peters, and ownership that is clearly committed to winning and willing to spend, these moves are not just smoke. There is substance. There is a real chance some of this actually happens. So yeah, I am hyped. More hyped about this franchise than I have been in years. And you should be too. Because for the first time in a long time, Washington has the right people in the right seats, making the right calls. And that, more than anything else, is what builds winners. Before heading out, if you are even half as fired up as I am about all this, drop that like. It helps the channel. It helps the algorithm. And it lets me know this type of content is hitting for you. And down in the comments, I need to know this. Which of these 3 moves matters the most to you? Bringing in Brandon Aiyuk and giving Jaden that weapon, locking down the backfield with Breece Hall or Rico Dowdle, or fixing the defense with Caleb Downs and Donnie Dennis Sutton in the draft? I want to hear the thoughts, because at the end of the day, we are all just fans trying to watch this team hold up Lombardus. We are all part of this same journey. And these are the moments that matter. These off-season decisions that decide whether this team is a contender or just another pretender. See you in the next video, fam, where we will keep breaking down everything going on with our Commanders. HTTR.